Perfect. So let's get started, Ali. One of the first questions that I wanted to ask this session is all about this concept of accountability. So could you share with us what is accountability for you and what role has it played in your journey as an entrepreneur?
Well, I think accountability for me is always starts with a level of compassion, because I just want to enter with that, because I think there is a feeling of accountability as being kind of a negative, harsh, um, you know, we need to hold the government accountable. We need to hold the people accountable. We need to, it's got that kind of energy to it. For me, it's not from that perspective at all. And for our company. And so to me, accountability means, as a coach, it means observation without judgment. And the idea that observing you doing what you want to do changes your behavior. And so that allowing ourselves to be observed by others and to commit to the things that we want to do in a way that we allow others to both view and know what it is that we want to do, and also to give us feedback, is a mechanism for growth. And then personally, accountability to me means like a level of personal responsibility, that I am committed to things that are within my control, and I'm very clear about what's not in my control and what is in my control. And then I'm committed to those things. And the way that I view accountability and commitment are really intertwined. So I always use those words together, but it actually is a way for me to organize the riffraff. So the things that I want to be accountable to are not going to the grocery store or doing the mundane, the things that I always have to do. What I want to be accountable to are the important things, the things that matter to me as a business owner, as a mom, as a wife, as a friend. And so I'm clear about, so accountability for me is a way to clear and sort and go, this is what matters.
Setting your priorities from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Ali, and I loved how you also touched on focusing on what you can control. That's a big thing, particularly within my area of when we're talking about finances, and we see the impact that the pandemic had in so many of our businesses and so many of our personal lives. The key is focusing on what you can control. So I love that you brought that to the accountability piece, and how can we stay focused on what we can control, and the rest just kind of let it go.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it really takes a shift in thinking, because people that come into our program are used to making commitments for other people, or making commitments and feeling the resentment and the frustration that comes when you can't make someone do something. You can't show up for someone else, and so it takes a little bit of rewiring to go, what is the end of what is the way that I can manage this, whether it's maybe I just follow up, maybe I remind, that's in my control, but what's on the other end, what someone else does, is not in my control. And I think that's one of the shifts. And then also just being okay, where can I have impact? Because if we're so caught up in things we can't control, then we aren't really having the impact I think that if you are here, you want to have.
That's beautiful. And for you as an entrepreneur, especially when you started your business, how did you stay accountable with those big goals? Were you doing it on your own, or would you say that you relied on your team for that?
Well, Accountability Works came from, I was selling real estate, and I got into real estate because my mom and sister were in real estate, and they were very different humans than I am. And so I was coming out of an engineering background, and I'd spent 5 years as an engineer. And I was like, what? You have to put your picture on a card? What? You have to call people you don't know? What? So I created an accountability group day one, because I was like, I'll never do those things. They're way too scary and uncomfortable. And how do you do that? And so I was always in an accountability group. And then people were like, what are you guys doing? You are all doing so great, because that was during the like financial crisis. And so we were just plodding along, keep doing our stuff, being really focused and consistent, and we were standing out. And so my manager ended up asking me to run groups for the office, and then I started running them for the company. And then I was like, I really love this. This is like, my soul's work. And so I started Accountability Works. And I never stopped being in a group. I'm in a group to this day. Like, it's just part of who I am.
And what could you share with us now that you're talking more about your journey as an entrepreneur? We're always curious to learn, what are you proud of? Because yes, we're talking about accountability. I think it's important to celebrate our wins and to share those as well. What have you achieved as an entrepreneur of which you're particularly proud of?
Well, for sure, the thing I'm most proud of is people living their vision. So many people. Like, that is absolutely, to me, the most. I could cry thinking about it. This woman told me this year, she said, I went back to see my family in Wisconsin. I hadn't seen them for a little while, like a lot of them, because of the pandemic. And they were like, wow, your life, like what you've created for yourself. It's so amazing. She has a business. She has a beautiful home. She has like just the lifestyle. And she left a really high stress tech career where she was just suffering from burnout and health issues and all this stuff. And she, she shared that, and she was like, I'm just so grateful because you have helped me stay so intentional. And it wasn't fast, but I'm here, and there's still things I want to do, but like that to me is, I hear that a lot. And it's like, there's such a culture of like, I want to do like this year, this in 6 weeks, this in, 5 minutes. And I feel like to really be so intentional over a long period of time and to actually live in your vision is so beautiful. And that's the thing I'm most proud of. But like logistically, I'm super excited that I built like a business that totally allows me to have the lifestyle I want to have. Like, I end work at 3 o'clock and I have time with my kids, and I have, I design my schedule. I have, there's, 6 of us coaches, and I'm in the place where I'm not taking on clients at the level that I had to in the beginning. And now it's like, do I want to do this? And growing the business to the place where we are, we're in all over the world, and to have Zoom and all technology meet us, because we were before. So we were like, when I started in 2012, it was the era of everybody like jumping in online, and you could post something on Facebook and everyone would see it, and like all this stuff. And it was just this heyday. And it was new and fresh, and it took us, we did everything over conference calls and then Zoom, and then all of a sudden, like 3 years later, everyone was like, Zoom. I'm like, oh, I've been there. I've been here for a while. But yeah, I think that's really great. And I have a partner. I started it, but I brought on a partner, Marissa, like 4 years ago, who had just like such a complementary skill set. And she's really taught me in our working together how to not overwork myself and not overdrive. And that's something I'm really proud of, because that's not the culture in which I grew up in. And so it's been a real rewiring.
Well, I kind of even want to stay here for a little bit, Ali, because I see that so many of our community does that, right? Especially as women, I think we tend to overstretch ourselves because we want to be there for the people we love. We want to be there for our team. We want to be there for so many people around us. And it's easy to kind of overstretch ourselves. What helped you along the way when you were working with your partner? What were things that still help you to this day, so that you can just, stay focused and not overwork?
Well, one of the reasons I was really attracted to her and something that she brought to the program that I didn't have, that was kind of a hole in what I was doing, is that it was really like around being driven and being purposeful and really future focused, because that is my personality. And that was like kind of what I was, and her background was in mindfulness and present moment intentionality. And I think that what she brought was like a kind of like more trust in the smaller steps, more of a feeling of leaning into the idea of consistency and being just absolutely committed to the small steps, setting the goals like we were and having the vision, but really being in it with the steps. And it was a reframe for me that was so valuable, because I think kind of what was happening was I was operating a little bit from scarcity. Like, I gotta do so I can get there. And I'm like, actually, I just do without that feeling, and I get there, and it's so much more pleasant.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm like here taking all these mental notes. I'm like, yes, we all need that. And that beautiful balance. And I'm right there with you. We were talking before the session of how we're both, I'm in finance, so I'm very future oriented, but that can take you away from the present moment, right? So I'm so glad you shared what you just did, because that is, life is that balance, right? And especially as entrepreneurs, that balance, it's this delicate dance, but very important one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Ali, and could you share, we also, I think it's important to talk a little bit about some of the challenges, right? This is being an entrepreneur, it's no easy journey. So we also like to learn about the challenges that you've experienced and how have you overcome them? Could you share a little bit about that?
I think, I'm at the place, and I think originally it was trusting that other people could coach the process that I created, so it was this feeling of control, like no one's going to do it as good as I do. You know? This is all about me and my specialness.
And it was your baby, so it's
my passion, and I'm so good at it, and then I learned that wasn't the case, actually. And so kind of getting over that, I think that like ego piece of, going from, I think E-Myth is a really good book for that, but the myth of like, you're the only person that can bake the perfect pie or whatever, instead of going, okay, there's other people that make great pie and they can make the pie and I can run the pie shop.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting out of the way of being able to grow, because when I was just doing so many coaching, I remember like my breaking point was doing 24 calls a week, and back to back to back, and holding space for groups and solos, and it was insane. And having little kids, like I was like, this is not sustainable. And I had to take like a financial hit to do that. And that was scary, because all of a sudden I was making less money, and I was and I was losing clients, because at first people were not wanting to coach with someone other than me, because I had positioned my business as about me and I was like the face. So I had to rebrand and redo the whole thing, because at the time that I started coaching, coaches were personalities, and I was like, but I have a process. This is a very specific process. So getting myself in the back, getting out of my ego and putting the process in front versus myself, and teaching and allowing other people to do it, and finding good people that could do it was a challenge. So that took several years. And then to really get it to where I was like, okay, it's accountability works. It's not Ali Schiller. And this is the process, and this is how it goes. And then systemizing all of that information. So everybody, templates, and oh my God, the tedium, endless Asana projects. And now the biggest challenge for me is being a bottleneck, like just giving off more control to, having someone, that, marketing, finances, all those pieces. Like, I just wanted to be the keeper of the keys, like still, even though I'm not doing so much coaching. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not working. So, having someone do social, having, all of those pieces is just like, each one is like, it's hard. Those have been my challenges, I think, biggest ones.
What helped you find the right people?
Really understanding what we were looking for, being very clear, and systemizing what we were going to ask them to do. Like, we did a lot of bad hires and spent a lot of extra money, not having roles really clear, not having parameters on what we wanted people to do, not, like, now it might seem crazy, but there's kind of a doc for everything. And we didn't do that in one fell swoop. Like, that took us a year of every week working on systems and processes, not a lot, but a little. And that's where I'm coming back to that really consistent action, because otherwise I would have been totally overwhelmed by that. But I think, really knowing people's roles and what we wanted them to do and what we were doing, and really good metrics, having really good metrics.
Amen. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ali. I think that's a big piece for a lot of the entrepreneurs here in the call as well, when you're growing your team.
All learned by making mistakes. Like, nothing was right at first.
And it's giving yourself permission to make those mistakes. Like, it's okay to make those mistakes. That's how we learn. That's how we grow.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, if we would have known, we made a physical planner last year. That was like the first time, here it is. And it's like, it's our process in a planner. And had we known what that was actually going to take, and then we were choosing to do, like, make a product in the year of like the biggest supply chain issues on earth, we've never done it ever. But I love it, and everyone that's got it loves it, and I use it every day, and I'm so happy, so, live and learn.
Where do we get our planner now? That's all I'm thinking now. See what you
accountabilityworksplanner.com.
Okay. Just be patient with the supply issues, people.
Yeah, no, we have them now. But oh my God, 3 months late, and all the stuff. So,
Ali, and now that you were talking about a process, right, and how important it has been for you to systematize, to take into account metrics, and just to establish these processes, I would love to learn more about a specific process that I think if you're like me, that at the beginning of every year, you're like starting strong with all these beautiful goals, you're gonna be curious about this too. What is your process, Ali, when it comes to establishing your personal and professional goals for each year?
Well, I would say the first thing that I'm doing is creating space. Like, you just have to have space to plan. You can't just go like, I'm going to plan between 2 and 3 on Tuesday. It just like doesn't work, so you have to give yourself like a good block of time to just let things percolate, and knowing that you have that time allows stuff to start to come through. And the first thing that I always start with is vision. And for us, vision has come down to 2 really simple questions, which is, where do I want to be professionally 3 years from now? And where do I want to be personally 3 years from now? And there's a lot of other kind of questions that we provide, like, what do I want to do more of? What do I want to do less of? What is nourishing to me? What is depleting to me? There's a lot of questions, and they're in the planner. But the idea is that you are giving yourself a place to dream of what your future looks like, and what you're working towards, because that is like where the goals are infused with real energy and soul and light, and and then they feel relevant and aligned and like they matter versus like, I want to make X amount of money and I'm not really sure why, or I want to do this. And like everything that you set for yourself is a sacrifice of something else you're not going to do, And so you really have to be clear that this is, thank you, Christina.
Yay,
This is a reflection. Your goals are a reflection of what truly matter to you, and sometimes we can set goals like, business goals because that's what everybody else is setting, but like, or this or that, I need to have a metric, blah, blah. And trust me, I'm telling you, I believe in metrics, but like they have to matter. Like I don't set a financial goal just to get bigger. I set a financial goal that is, that I have figured out what I need to have what I am dreaming of. You know what I mean? Not because like X, has that financial goal or because I'm
glad
up,
you brought that up. They
and
have to be unique.
And so, for me, like being really clear of like, well, I don't want to just endlessly grow to grow. I want to grow like intentionally in the ways that are important to me. And that's what the vision is. So the vision is, this is where I want to be. And that's a question you answer over and over and over again, because we ask you to revisit your vision and go, is this still right? Because we also change. So what you're thinking in January might be a little bit different in November, and so really revisiting and going like, is this still relevant? Does this still feel right to me? Goals, on the other hand, like as much as I've worked with people, they don't really change. Like once you get into like the right goals, like, they don't really change. You're like, okay, this is what is up for me right now. And so I just like to keep a limit on how many goals I set. Like some years I'll go as high as 5 and some years as low as 3. And there's typically 2 for me in the realm of personal, and then 2 that are business, and 1 that we have named personal foundation, which is like, these are the habits and routines that feed everything else, that are non-negotiable, that I want to have in my life, that I really want to make sure that I'm accountable to. And that's for me stuff like my morning routine, my evening routine, like just this, like really, what I've learned is the more we grow and the older I get and the more I'm subject to hormones and all the other things, like my self-care is not negotiable.
Amen. Please, let's take a moment to let that simmer in, because I want everyone to just adopt that. Like your self-care is the most important part, because without it, you're not going to be able to be there for the community and to be there for your clients, for your team, for your family.
No.
Let's prioritize self-care this year, ladies. I'm committing to that 2022.
Like it is a business practice. It is a business practice. My clients, like I can't tell you how many that commit to taking, like, I'm going to take 1 day off this week. I'm going to, their business gets better. Their income grows. Like it is, they're not winning, not taking days off. Like this is not serving them, the way they think it is, And so it is, and that's the other thing. It's like, I deal with driven people. So I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about, oh, I'm just like lazing around. So that's not it. As I am sure you all can relate.
I think there's so much, and at the end of the session, I'll share that we're going to be having a workshop, a WeaveWorks workshop about just healthy boundaries and self-love. And this is something that we're going to be talking about, because we really see that there's sometimes a lot of guilt associated with taking a break, right? And we need to take that guilt out of the equation, because as Ali just mentioned, right, like it could increase your productivity. So taking breaks and sometimes just doing nothing, that's exactly what you need to do. Just take a break, do nothing to recharge. I think it's it, right?
So true. And I had seen this and I thought it was so good. It's okay to take a moment from an anxious, fractured mind. The world will not stop turning while you get realigned. The mountain will still be there when you want to try again. You can climb in your own time. Just love yourself till then. It's so good, right?
That's a mic drop moment right there, Ali. Let me tell you, that's beautiful. I'm so glad you shared that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And here I want to just be conscious of time. And if anybody has any questions, I noticed there's a couple questions in the chat. So I have one more question for you, Ellie, and then we can either jump to chat questions or do breakouts and then come back to questions. But this would be around what tips and tricks would you give us to stay accountable with our goals for this new year? And particularly now that we touched on self-care with what matters to us, and how are we going to stay accountable with those important things for us this year?
One is write it down. Just write it down. You're like 20, there's tons of research around this, like 25% more likely to do something if you write it down. It's the easiest. The other thing is, like, if you don't know what to commit to or what you're going to do, it's track. Just keep track. How much time am I spending on this? How much am I, just because that creates a level of mindfulness that is accountability. You are basically just observing your own self. So whatever it is, like maybe it's like you want to exercise more. How much are you exercising? Keep track. Maybe you want to make more phone calls. Keep track of how many you're making. All of that, because that act encourages more of that act, whatever it is that you want to do. If you're doing like really kind of like you're in the stretch place, discomfort, resistance, like there's stuff you have to do, like what I described in the very beginning when I was talking about, oh my God, I have to cold call people. I have to knock on people's doors, because that's how I actually sold real estate back then, was I door knocked, and it was crazy. But I did that, and I used to like go, okay, I'm going to knock on 50 doors this week. And some people were doing like 200, but that seemed crazy to me. So, but I can't even imagine now, like but that's how I did it. And I would meet people, and that was my business model. And and so that was super scary for me. So if you're doing something where you're really in that stretch place, get a buddy and buddy up and talk to each other, and tell them what you're going to do that week, and check in. If you have Art Planner, everything's in there written out for what you would talk about and how you would do it, because it's made for either holding yourself accountable to what you say you're going to do, or to work with someone else together, or a group, and we have lots of groups going right now with people that bought the planner, which is really awesome. I love seeing that. So for me, that was the most effective, which is why I started Accountability Works, because there were so many people that didn't know how to do that, and they didn't know, or they had a less committed buddy, and they were formed a group and it fell apart, or didn't have great energy or whatever. And I was like, I'm going to do that, So I absolutely believe in the power of really sharing what you're going to do with someone else. So easiest entry point is write it down. And then like to the every level up from that to being accountable, I think those are kind of my keys. And like I said, I'm like, I teach it, but I do it. I just do, because I'm like everybody else. There's 15 million things. I get distracted. I go down a rabbit hole. I meant to go online to do one thing, and next thing you know, 40 minutes went by and I was doing something else. That just happens.
It's so good to know that it happens. It happens to you too.
But I have a commitment that I need to spend X amount of time on these 5 things, and I am going to do it, because I'm going to show up with my stuff done.
Ali, and before we jump to the breakout rooms, again, just thank you so much for being so candid this morning and sharing all your bits of wisdom here with us. We have one question in the chat, and then we're going to go into the breakout rooms. And the
Perfect.
question, it's about Kelly Ochoa asks, if we have time for questions, right? How do you come up with the cost of your services in terms of a system? What has helped you in that process?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. How the heck do you do that? So I looked at what other people were doing in the marketplace. I looked at what I was paying for, because I was like a consumer of coaching, lots of different types of coaches. I've had a coach for everything. And I was kind of like comparing to that. And also looking at, at pricing to grow is like, what are you paying the people who are going to run your program? What is the profit margin? What are you spending on marketing? What are you allocating for your own salary? And so I think I took all of those we've taken all of those things into consideration. So like our 1-year program, if you pay in full, is $32.89. And on a monthly basis, it's $299. And that was really important to us to keep it affordable. It's not affordable for everyone, but coaching can be so expensive. And it's very valuable, because we wanted people to be able to do it for a really long time. If they wanted to, like, look at it like, this is like my gym membership for my business. This is where I guarantee that I'm getting all of my stuff done. And we really didn't want to have like, okay, I'm going to sign up for a 3-month, $5,000 or $10,000 package, and then we'll never see you again. We wanted to cultivate people that were with us for a very long time. And I think my average, customer value, I guess it would be the metric, is very high. Our retention rate is over 2 years. Like we are, that has been a good system for us. I hope I answered that question.
Yes, you did, Ali. And the other thing is that's why we're here for you, right? We have our training, our learning solutions team is working on creating 2 different courses for all of you. One, it's on personal finances, and the other one, it's on know your business numbers. So we know that this is a very delicate issue, particularly with making sure that you are charging what you should be charging, and not, sometimes I think with the heart comes in and you're like, no, but maybe a smaller price, right? But your time is so valuable, and it's important to charge what you should be charging. So that's something that if you have more questions about that topic, we're here to help, and we're happy to tell you more about the courses, or also connect you with one of our coaches that focuses on business finances and can help you in this path of charging, right? But I love your answer, Ali, and I love that you brought up, make sure that you're charging for your time, right? Sometimes we forget that. So I want to make sure that you put yourself first in that regard, right? So time is flying, of course. And Ali, you've been so amazing. And I want to share with the group the activity for the breakout rooms before we go into them. Let me share my screen real quick. So what Ali mentioned that would be very nice for our breakout rooms this morning is just to take your time. And when the moment you get into the breakout rooms, I love this analogy. One of my colleagues brought it up. It's like going into the ocean at the beginning. It might feel a little weird, but once you're in there, just try to enjoy it and try to connect with other wonderful women this morning. Unmute yourself, introduce yourself. And one thing that we can do is share what our word for the year. One word that encompasses the way in which you want to grow this year, or a characteristic you want to cultivate. Ali, Ali is the one that came up with this wonderful exercise. Would you like to add anything to the exercise itself, Ali, about sharing our word?
I think you've summed it up perfectly. This is something that our clients really love to do. It's the very first page of our planner. We call it your theme. Like, what's my theme for the year? What is it that I'm kind of working around? And it's a really soft way of inviting new knowledge, and it perks your brain up. it activates, what is it, the reticular activating system in your brain, like when you're going to buy a car and all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. So when you set your theme, you're like invited to like pick up books you might not have otherwise picked up, or attend seminars, or whatever. So it's a nice invitation, but soft, to what it is that you want to cultivate or grow wherever in your life or business this year.
Perfect. So let's go ahead and do that. My colleague Taylor is going to help us with the breakout rooms. So we'll see you in a few. Thank you, my dear, for all your help today.
I might go join one of the breakout rooms if you want to stay in this area.
Yes, I'm going to wait in
Okay.
case anyone trickles in. Thank you, Taylor.